The void whispers promises it rarely keeps.
Out here, in the Kuiper Belt's ragged edge, silence isn't golden. It's the sound of failing life support, dwindling fuel reserves, and the ever-present gnaw of solitude. My ship, the Nomad, is more rust bucket than starhopper these days, held together by recycled plating, stubborn ingenuity, and a dwindling supply of synth ale.
I'm Kaelen Vance, listen seht, barely Prospector, chasing ghosts of riches in the belt's forgotten corners.
Credits are low. Hope, even lower.
I need a score.
Not just a score, but the score. The kind that lets a man forget the crushing debt back on Titan Station, the kind that buys silence and maybe even a ticket somewhere warmer, somewhere with actual breathable air outside the hull.
KB 417b.
Officially designated Acheron, by some morbidly poetic surveyor centuries ago. It swims in the belt's most treacherous currents, a lump of nickel iron and exotic silicates notorious for its gravitational quirks and the ships it swallowed.
Most zane prospestors give it a wide berth.
But the long-range scans, filtered through layers of cosmic dust and interference, hinted at something unusual. Not just the expected heavy metals, but anomalous energy signatures deep within its core. Unstable, fluctuating, unlike any known geological or technological source catalogued by the Commonwealth database.
Risky? Hell yes.
Potentially lucrative?
Beyond Measure.
Desperation is a powerful motivator. Navigating the approach was like wrestling a greased octopus in zero-G. Acheron didn't just sit there, it lurched. Minor gravitational eddies tugged at the Nomad, demanding constant micro-adjustments from the aging maneuvering thrusters. Debris, remnants of past asteroid collisions or perhaps less fortunate visitors, formed a lethal halo. The proximity alerts screamed incessantly, a chorus of impending doom I learned to filter into background noise years ago. Scrap, my trusty, mostly mining drone, sat docked externally, its multispectral sensors already mapping the landing zone. A precarious plateau barely wide enough for the Nomad's landing gear, nestled between jagged peaks of frozen methane and dark rock. "Easy does it, girl," I murmured, hands dancing over the controls, sweat beading on my forehead despite the recycled air's chill. The landing struts groaned in protest as they made contact, magnetic clamps engaging with a reassuring thud that echoed through the deck plates. Outside, the view was stark beauty and utter desolation. A landscape carved by eons of cosmic bombardment under the faint, distant gaze of Sol.
No atmosphere, no sound beyond the ships on whom.
Just rock, ice, and the suffocating vacuum.
I powered down non-essential systems, conserving energy.
The internal lights dimmed, plunging the bridge into twilight, illuminated only by the glow of monitors.
The anomalous energy signature pulsed on the main display, a beacon deep beneath my feet.
Coordinates locked. "All right, Scrap," I said, flipping the drone activation sequence. "Time to earn your keep."
Phase Drill Protocol. Target, energy source.
Go gentle. Scrap detached smoothly, its articulated limbs unfolding as it hovered above the desolate surface on its low-power gravlifts. Its powerful mining laser, usually reserved for cracking open ore-rich seams, was repurposed. Instead of brute force, I'd configured it for a phased resonance drill, slower, more precise, less likely to trigger a catastrophic cave-in within Acheron's unstable structure. The drone angled downwards, the laser emitting a low thrum, biting into the asteroid's crust. Progress reports trickled back, dense silicate layers, pockets of frozen volatiles, veins of common metals. Hours crawled by. I monitored Scrap's telemetry, ran ship diagnostics, brewed nutrient paste that tasted vaguely of despair, and watched the energy signature. It remained steady, a persistent heartbeat in the stone. Then, Scrap hit something different. Drilling resistance spiked. Telemetry showed contact with a crystalline structure, impossibly hard and geometrically perfect.
Not natural.
Not like any known mineral formation. The energy readings surged, bathing Scrap's internal sensors in static. "Whoa, easy there," I muttered, manually throttling back the drill's power. The drone's camera feed flickered, showing glimpses of iridescent, faceted surfaces deep within the borehole before the signal degraded further. "Report, Scrap."
Materialkomposition.
I queried. The response was garbled, fragmented data packets struggling against the interference. Something about complex carbon lattices, trace elements not found on the periodic table, and resonant frequencies off the known scale. My heart hammered against my ribs. This wasn't a rich vein of ore. This was something else.
Someting alien. The energy signature pulsed again, stronger this time.
Alarms blared on the console. EM interference, gravitational shear detected near the drone. Scrap. Pull back.
Abort drilling.
Too late. The camera feed dissolved into static. Telemetry flatlined.
A-Final, mangelt Data-Burst, struktural integrity compromised.
Cavity detected.
Unknown energy field. 10, Silence.
Scrap. I yelled into the comms, pointlessly. Nothing. The drone icon on the tactical display was red, unresponsive. Dead or disabled, deep within Acheron.
And the energy source?
It was now radiating with palpable intensity, the readings climbing steadily. Worse, the Nomad's own systems began to flicker. Lights dimmed and surged. Gravity compensators whined. Damn it. Losing scrap hurt. Replacing it would cost a fortune I didn't have. But the data. The potential discovery. I couldn't leave it. And I definitely couldn't leave Scrap's data core, which might hold the only record of what it found. There was no choice. Standard EVA suit check, seals tight, oxygen mix optimal, helmet comms linked to the ship. Grabbed my personal sidearm, a reliable kinetic pulse pistol, and the emergency plasma cutter. The airlock cycled, venting the familiar metallic tang of the Nomad's atmosphere into the void. Stepping onto Acheron's surface felt like stepping into a tomb. The silence was absolute, broken only by the rasp of my own breathing inside the helmet. I secured a tether line to the ship's hull and activated the magboots, taking careful, clunky steps towards the borehole Scrap had drilled. It gaped like a dark maw in the regolith. Peering down, my helmet lamp cut through the blackness, illuminating smooth, almost polished tunnel walls where the drill had passed. The crystalline structure Scrap had hit was visible further down, fragments shimmering with captured light. I rappelled down the tether, the ship receding above me. The tunnel descended deeper than Scrap's initial bore indicated. The drone must have broken through into a pre-existing cavity. The EM interference intensified as I descended, my suit's internal sensors struggling. Static hissed in my ears. Then, the tunnel opened up. I found Scrap wedged against the far wall of a cavernous space. Its chassis was buckled, one manipulator arm sheared clean off. Its optical sensor was dark. But the data core access port seemed intact. The cavern itself. It defied easy description. It wasn't carved or drilled, it flowed. The walls were smooth, undulating curves of the same iridescent crystal Scrap had encountered, pulsing faintly with internal light. Geometry felt wrong here, angles shifting, perspectives distorting. It was like standing inside a frozen kaleidoscope designed by something utterly non-human. And in the center, suspended in the strange, low gravity, was the source of the energy readings. It wasn't geological. It was an artifact. A complex structure of interlocking, shifting geometric shapes, polyhedrons flowing into impossible curves, crystalline facets catching and refracting light that seemed to originate from within. It hummed, a low, subsonic vibration felt more in the bones than heard. It was beautiful and terrifying, radiating ancient power and unfathomable purpose. My suit sensors went haywire, proximity alerts screaming about radiation, energy fields, spatial distortions. I ignored them, drifting slowly towards Scrap, plasma cutter ready. I needed that data core. As I reached the drone, my gloved hand brushed against a low outcrop of the cavern's crystalline wall. Pain. Not physical, but mental. A flood of raw data, alien sensations, fractured images slammed into my consciousness.
Stars wheeling in unfamiliar Schieß.
Complex schematics overlaying galactic maps.
The feeling of immense time, of Zivilisationsriesing entfalling like cosmic tides.
Whispers of thought, structured in ways I couldn't comprehend, speaking of journeys between dimensions, of seeding knowledge, of guardians left behind. It was overwhelming, a sensory tsunami.
I recoiled, gasping, my untugucked scattering like debris.
My helmet comms crackled.
Warning, neural interface overload.
Recommend immediate withdrawal. The artifact in the center of the chamber pulsed brighter, the humming intensifying. The very structure of the cavern seemed to respond. Sections of the crystalline walls began to shift, extrude, reform. Not randomly. With purpose. Shapes emerged from the walls, angular, multi-limbed constructs of the same iridescent crystal, unfolding like terrifying origami. Their forms were vaguely insectoid, armed with facets that sharpened into cutting edges and emitters that glowed with contained energy. Guardians.
Automated defenses.
Awakened by my presence, by my contact with the chamber, by the artifact's heightened state.
No time for the data core. Survival instincts screamed Ludatan intellectual curiosity.
I shoved off Scrap's wreckage, kicking towards the tunnel entrance high above. One of the crystalline constructs swiveled, its multifaceted head tracking my movement. A beam of focused energy, blindingly bright, lanced out, striking the wall near my head.
Crystal shards exploded outwards. Computer. Seal the airlock on my return signal.
Prepare for immediate liftoff. I yelled into the calm, scrambling up the tether hand over hand, clumsy in the bulky suit. Another energy beam narrowly missed, superheating the rock face beside me. The cavern resonated with the hum of the awakening defenses. More constructs were detaching from the walls below. The climb felt agonizingly slow. My muscles burned, lungs heaving against the suit's recycler. Below, the crystalline guardians were beginning to ascend the tunnel walls, their movements unervingly fluid despite their rigid composition. I risked a glance down, 3 of them, moving faster than I could climb. Nearly at the top. I could see the faint starlight filtering down the borehole. Just a few more meters.
A contrast fired again.
This time it hit the tether line above me. The superheated cable snapped with a silent, final parting.
I tumbled, falling back down the smooth tunnel, magbots scrabbling uselessly against the frictionless crystal.
Panic seized me. Below, the guardians waited. Thinking fast, heart pounding, I drew my kinetic pulse pistol. Aimed at the tunnel wall ahead of my fall. Fired. The recoil was negligible in the low G, but the impact wasn't. The pulse round, designed to penetrate ship hulls, blasted a crater in the crystalline surface, sending shockwaves through the structure. It didn't stop my fall, but it momentarily disrupted the nearest guardian, causing it to pause, its facets flickering erratically. It bought me a second. As I slid past the damaged section, I slammed the heel of my magboot hard against the fractured edge, hoping to find purchase. It held barely. I dangled precariously, pistol still in hand. Below, the guardians recovered, resuming their ascent. I fired again, aiming for the lead construct. The kinetic slug slammed into its crystalline torso, shattering surface layers but not stopping it. It barely slowed.
Plasma cutter. My last resort.
Igniting it with a hiss, I swung the searing blade in an arc as the lead guardian reached my level. The plasma beam carved through the crystalline limb reaching for me, sending molten shards flying. The construct recoiled, disoriented. I used the moment, pushing off the wall again, propelling myself upwards towards the surface opening, using the plasma cutter like a makeshift thruster, firing it in short bursts behind me. It was a desperate, fuel-inefficient maneuver, eating precious energy reserves, but it was faster than climbing. I burst out onto Acheron's surface, gasping, rolling away from the borehole just as crystalline arms emerged, grasping at the empty vacuum. I scrambled to my feet, ignoring the suit's low power warnings, and sprinted towards the Nomad, its silhouette a beautiful, solid promise of safety against the star-dusted black. Behind me, the guardians began to emerge onto the surface, their crystalline forms glittering unervingly in the starlight. The outer airlock door slid open as I approached, triggered by my suit's proximity signal.
I flung myself inside, hitting the cycle command.
The outer door slid shut just as an energy beam splashed against the hull plating near the entrance. Safe. For now. The inner door opened, and I stumbled onto the bridge, ripping off my helmet. The air tasted stale but blessedly real. Collapsing into the pilot's chair, hands shaking, I slammed the console for liftoff. Thrusters roared, shaking the entire ship. The Nomad clawed its way off Acheron's treacherous surface, magnetic clamps disengaging with a painful shriek of protesting metal.
Below, the Guardians stood on the plateau, waiting US-ly, silent sentinels of an ancient secret.
As the Nomad gained altitude, the asteroid seemed to shudder. Cracks spiderwebbed across the surface near the borehole. The energy signature emanating from its core flared violently, and the gravitational distortions intensified, buffeting the ship.
Come on girl, hold together.
I yelled, fighting the controls as the ship bucked and yawed. Warning lights flashed across the board: hull stress, gravimetric shear, minor system failures. Acheron wasn't letting go easily. I pushed the engines to their absolute limit, pouring power we barely had into escaping the asteroid's chaotic influence. Slowly, agonizingly, the Nomad pulled free, leaving the convulsing asteroid and its crystalline protectors behind. Once clear, I engaged the FTL drive charger. It would take time, precious time, before we could jump clear of the system.
Time to think.
Time to process the fragmented data dump that had flooded my mind.
The visions, the whispers, the sheer scale of it all.
This wasn't just an alien artifact, it felt like a key, a map, a fragment of something universe-shatteringly important left behind by beings who traversed galaxies like humans crossed streets.
Beings long gone, leaving behind automated systems and dormant power.
Scrap was gone.
The data core, lost.
But the knowledge, fractured and incomplete, was now inside my head.
Dangerous, priceless burden. What should I do?
Sell the location? The Commonwealth Astroarchaeological Corps would pay billions. Corporations would kill for it. Warlords in the Outer Rim would ignite systems to possess whatever power the artifact contained. Could anyone be trusted with it?
The visions hinted at checks, balances, reasons for the secrecy, the guardianship.
Releasing this knowledge felt like handing a child a fusion grenade. The FTL drive whined, reaching optimal charge. Coordinates? Not Titan Station. Not any known civilized hub.
Some wäre quiet. Some wäre remote.
The Outer Rim beckoned, not with promises of riches this time, but of anonymity. I accessed the ship's log, carefully deleting the sensor records of the anomalous energy signature, purging the exact coordinates of KB417b. I fabricated sensor ghosts, equipment malfunctions, a plausible cover story of a failed prospecting run and a damaged drone lost to geological instability. Let Acheron keep its secrets, guarded by its crystalline sentinels.
Let the void swallow the memory.
Except, I couldn't forget. The echoes of Acheron were now part of me. The knowledge, the responsibility.
I wasn't just Kaelen Vance, wäschet ab Prospector, animore.
I was something else.
A reluctant keeper of secrets.
The FTL drive engaged, stretching the stars into streaks of light. The Nomad, battered but spaceborne, leaped into the swirling chaos of hyperspace, carrying its lone pilot and the weight of an ancient, cosmic legacy towards an uncertain future, deeper into the endless, silent dark. The whispers of the void had delivered, not riches, but a burden far heavier. And the journey was just beginning. Approximate character count, 11,500 characters. Self-correction, the story is significantly shorter than the requested 60,000 characters. To expand it, I need to add more detail, subplots, or extend existing scenes significantly.
Expansion plan.
Prologue/backstory, flesh out Kaelen's past, his debts, why he's so desperate. Show, don't just tell, his isolation. Add detail about the Nomad and its history.
@5,000 chars. Journée to Acheron. Make the journée more perilous.
Introduce encounters with other prospectors, space hazards, or bureaucratic hurdles. Build suspense about Acheron's reputation.
@7,000 chars.
Asteroid exploration. Extend the drone sequence. Describe the initial drilling difficulties in more detail. Add analysis of the strange materials before scrap is lost. Show Kaelen's technical skills in configuring and troubleshooting the drone.
@8,000 chars.
EVA sequence. Make the descent into the cavern more challenging. Describe the tunnel environment, the strange physics, the psychological effects of the isolation and the growing energy field before the main chamber. Maybe a minor cave-in or equipment scare.
@10,000 chars.
The artifact chamber. Detail the artifact more vividly. Expand on the psychic/data flood. More specific visions, clearer, though still alien concepts. Introduce more varied types of guardians or environmental hazards within the chamber itself.
@10 000 Chars.
The escape. Make the escape sequence more complex. Kaelen might need to use the environment strategically, triggering collapses, using alien tech remnants. Perhaps one guardian pursues him almost all the way back to the ship, leading to a final confrontation at the airlock. Detail the Nomad's damage more specifically during the escape from Acheron's gravity.
@8 000 Chars.
Aftermath/resolution. Expand on Kaelen's internal conflict. Show him accessing fragmented memories/data. Perhaps a near-miss encounter with a patrol or another ship forces his decision to hide the information. Detail his log falsification process. End with a stronger sense of the future implications.
@5 000 Chars.
This expansion plan aims to add roughly 53,000 characters, bringing the total closer to the target. Let's proceed with rewriting and expanding. Expanded story, attempting 60,000 characters. Title, Echoes of Acheron.
Log Entry, Kaelen Vance, Space Prospector Nomad, Zykle 87.4, Sol Standard Kalender.
Location, Kuiper Belt, Uncharted Sector 7G.
The Void Whispers Promises it rarely keeps.
Out here, adrift in the Kuiper Belt's ragged, frozen edge, silence isn't a comfort. It's the relentless countdown clock marking diminishing returns on recycled air, the sputtering cough of an overworked fusion core, and the slow erosion of sanity that comes with profound, star-dusted isolation. My ship, the Deep Space Prospector vessel Nomad, designation 7 Kilo Bravo Prospector, is less a vessel these days and more a testament to salvaged hope. Patched hull plates gleam dully beside panels oxidized to a permanent rust-red blush. Her systems hum with the off-key tune of components operating long past their recommended service life. She, like me, is a veteran of too many failed ventures, held together by jury-rigged repairs, stubborn resolve learned in the hard vacuum, and a dwindling reserve of shockingly potent synthale brewed in a repurposed nutrient vat. I am Kaelen Vance, Prospector license number 734 Delta Sigma, validity currently conditional. Conditional on paying back the exorbitant loan sharking fees levied by the smiling predators of Titan Station's lower ring credit union, a euphemism if ever there was one. They don't deal in repossessions out here, they deal in salvage rights on overdue accounts, which usually involves finding your ship mysteriously decompressed and your escape pod malfunctioning. So, I need a score. Not just pocket change from common asteroid silicates or water ice.
I need the Motorlode.
The kind of strike that wipes slates clean, buys silence from orbital creditors, and maybe, just maybe, secures passage to one of the terraformed worlds in the Tau Ceti system.
Some wäre green. Some wäre the Erdösend Taste of Ozone and Desperation.
Which brings me to KB 417b. A celestial pariah christened Acheron centuries ago by some classics-obsessed surveyor with a flair for the dramatic and a disregard for future prospecting traffic. It haunts the belt's notoriously unstable Serpent's Coil region, a misshapen behemoth of nickel iron, exotic ices, and God knows what else. Its reputation precedes it. Ships vanish near its gravity well, sensors go haywire, prospectors tell tales of phantom energy readings and equipment failure rates that defy statistical probability.
Most give it a Bert widertan a Gas Giants Ringsystem.
But my long-range deep scan array, painstakingly recalibrated after the last solar flare nearly fried it, picked up something through the cosmic static. Faint, intermittent, but undeniably there. Anomalous energy signatures, pulsing from deep within Acheron's core.
Unstable, yes.
Fluctuating, certainly. But patterned. Complex. Unlike any geothermal activity, radioactive decay profile, or known technological footprint listed in the sprawling, labyrinthine Commonwealth Galactic Database. The risk assessment matrix screamed red across multiple parameters: gravitational instability, debris field density, unknown energy phenomena, distance from standard patrol routes, read, rescue. Any sane operator would have plotted a course correction 90 degrees away and engaged FDL. But sanity is a luxury often unaffordable when staring down the barrel of financial ruin and the unsavory collection methods employed by Titan Credit. Desperation, it turns out, is an excellent antidote to common sense. Potential payoff? Astronomical, if the energy source was tied to exotic matter or undiscovered high-value minerals. Or perhaps something else entirely. The belt was old, space vast.
Hoe knee wat relics lay sleeping in the dark?
The approach was worse than the simulations predicted. Acheron didn't just possess a gravity well, it was surrounded by a chaotic tapestry of gravitational microeddies and unexpected shear points. It felt less like orbital mechanics and more like navigating rapids in a canoe made of lead. The Nomad groaned and protested, her aging inertial dampeners struggling to compensate. Alarms chirped, wailed, and occasionally just gave up with a pathetic electronic sigh. The debris field was thicker than reported. A lethal halo of tumbling rock, ice shards the size of ground cars, and disconcertingly, twisted fragments of processed metal glinting in the faint sunlight. Hull plating from ships that hadn't been as lucky, or perhaps just less desperate. Easy girl, I coaxed, my voice tight, hands slick on the worn flight yoke. Sweat traced cold paths down my temples despite the climate control's valiant efforts. Thrusters fired in short, sharp bursts, nudging us through the cosmic minefield.
My copilot, navigator, and chief engineer, namely, ML, run constant diagnostic checks, rerouting power, monitoring hull integrity sensors. Solitude breeds multitasking.
Finally, the target landing zone came into view, a relatively flat, by Acheron's jagged standards, plateau of dark, pockmarked rock, perched precariously between towering spires of frozen methane that gleamed like malevolent blue glass. Scrap, my mining drone, designation RD-7, affectionately nicknamed for its patchwork appearance after numerous field repairs, was already extending its sensor booms, painting the landing site with targeting lasers. Its multispectral analysis confirmed stable ground, at least for the moment. The descent was controlled agony. Gusts of escaping volatiles from subsurface fissures buffeted the ship unexpectedly. Gravitational fluctuations tugged insistently. I fought the controls, murmuring course corrections and prayers to whatever cosmic entity might be listening, likely none. The landing struts extended with a hydraulic wheeze, contacting the surface with a jolt that rattled my teeth. Magnetic clamps sunk into the regolith, biting deep, anchoring us with a satisfying series of thuds that echoed like hammer blows through the deck plating. Engine whine died down. Silence, vast and profound, pressed in from outside.
Trug the forward Fiefport, a panorama of breathtaking desolation.
Jagged peaks clawed at a black sky littered with impossibly bright stars. Sol was a distant, brilliant point, offering little warmth but stark illumination.
No atmosphere. No sound save the Nomad's life support and the low trum of the power core.
Just rock, ice, vacuum, and the weight of unimaginable distance. Power conservation protocols engaged.
Non-essential systems offline.
Internal lighting dimmed to a functional minimum, casting the cramped bridge in long shadows, punctuated by the steady glow of monitor displays.
The anomalous energy signature dominated the main screen, a vibrant, unstable bloom de beneath our landing gear.
Coordinates pinpointed, locked. Time to go to work. All right, scrap, I announced to the empty bridge, activating the drone deployment sequence. Let's see what the fuss is about. Phase resonance drill protocol engaged.
Target, energy epicenter. Low power, high frequency. Go gentle, you hear?
Don't wake the neighbors, if there are any. Scrap detached from its external dock with practiced smoothness, its 6 articulated limbs unfolding. Low-power grav lifts hummed, raising it silently above the gray dust. The drone maneuvered over the designated spot, its heavy-duty mining laser emitter glowing with focused intensity. Not the brute force beam for shattering rock, but a precisely modulated frequency designed to resonate with the target material, gently vibrating it apart layer by layer. Slower, energy-intensive, but far less likely to trigger the kind of catastrophic structural failure Acheron was infamous for. The beam contacted the surface, sending up a silent puff of displaced regolith. A low vibration traveled through the Nomad's hull as scrap began its work. Progress reports scrolled across a secondary monitor. Meters drilled, 5, 10, 20. Composition analysis, standard silicate rock, traces of iron, nickel, expected pockets of frozen nitrogen and methane.
All-Routine.
Hours bled into each other, marked only by the changing digits on the chronometer and the periodic cycling of the air recycler. I monitored Scrap's telemetry streams, cross-referenced readings with the ship's internal sensors, ran simulations based on the incoming data, and choked down another pouch of nutrient paste that tasted vaguely of recycled cardboard and existential dread. The energy signature remained constant. A deep, rhythmic pulse, like a slumbering heart beneath the stone. Cycle 87.5. Approximately 35 meters down. Scrap's drill encountered unexpected resistance. A sharp spike in density, hardness off the charts for any known natural formation. Telemetry flickered.
Materialanalysis, Scrap.
I prompted, leaning forward. The drone's internal processors struggled, spitting back fragmented data packets laced with static. It reported contact with a non-metallic crystalline structure. Symmetrical. Exhibiting unusual resonant properties when stimulated by the drill's energy field. Then, the energy readings from the target source surged dramatically. A wave of electromagnetic interference washed over the drone, scrambling its sensors. Alarms shrieked on my console, EM pulse detected, localized gravitational distortion increasing near the borehole. Scrap's external camera feed, relayed to the bridge, flickered violently, offering tantalizing glimpses of iridescent, perfectly geometric facets flashing deep within the drill hole before dissolving into a snowstorm of static.
Scrap. Power down drill.
Retract.
Abort sequence, now.
My commands felt swallowed by the sudden electronic chaos. Too late. The telemetry link flatlined. The drone's icon on the tactical display turned angry red. Status, offline.
Signal lost.
A final, corrupted data burst managed to push through the interference firewall, fragmented but chilling, penetration event.
Void detested by und crystal lattice. Unknown energy field saturation. Struktural integrity critical. Cascading System verlore. Silence.
Scrap. Damn it. I slammed a fist on the console, the frustration echoing impotently in the small space. The drone wasn't just equipment, it was years of salvaged parts, custom modifications, countless hours of maintenance. Replacing it would cripple me financially, likely ending my prospecting career for good. But more than the monetary loss, there was the data. The final transmission mentioned a void, a cavity beyond the crystal. And the crystal itself. Perfectly geometric?
Resonant?
Combined with the energy source? This wasn't a mineral deposit. This was something else.
Something manufactured? Something alien? The implications sind adjolt, koldatan the void outside, down my spine.
I couldn't leave it. Not just scrap, but the potential discovery. The drone's onboard data core stored everything its sensors recorded, right up to the point of failure. That core might hold the key.
And the energy signature?
It hadn't died with scrap. It was now pulsing with even greater intensity, the readings climbing off the established scale. Worse, the interference wasn't just affecting the borehole anymore. The Nomad's own systems were experiencing minor fluctuations.
Sensor ghosts flickered on the edge of the screen.
The artificial gravity plates hummed unevenly. Acheron was stirring. Decision made. Regret was a luxury for later. Standard extravehicular activity suit protocols initiated. Internal diagnostic, green across the board. Oxygen mix, optimal nitrox blend, 8-hour capacity. Helmet comms check, linked to ship's main computer, encrypted channel.
Personal CDRM. Check.
Kinetic pulse pistol, Model 7 negotiator, fully charged power cell.
Heavy tool. Check.
Emergency plasma cutter, industrial grade, sufficient fuel for 20 minutes continuous operation.
The inner airlock door hissed shoot behind ME.
The familiar process of depressurization, the slight change in pressure against the suit seals.
Outer door cycling open. Void.
Stepping onto Acheron's surface was like entering a soundless, lightless mausoleum. The silence was absolute, broken only by the rhythmic hiss and click of my suit's life support and the sound of my own breathing, suddenly loud in my ears. I secured a high-tensile tether line to a reinforced mooring point on the Nomad's hull, standard procedure, but it felt more vital here. activated the magnetic soles of my boots, their grip reassuring on the metallic dust and rock. Each step was deliberate, heavy, the suit resisting motion slightly. The borehole scrap had drilled gaped near the edge of the plateau, a perfect circle descending into blackness. My helmet-mounted lamp beam sliced into the depths, illuminating smooth, almost glassy walls where the phase drill had done its work. Further down, maybe 30 meters, I could see fragments of the crystalline structure scrap had hit, shimmering with captured, internally reflected light, like scattered diamonds on black velvet. The air of mystery, of the profoundly unnatural, thickened. Attaching my descent rig to the tether, I began to rappel down. The Nomad dwindled above, a small island of familiar technology in an ocean of alien geology. The EM interference intensified noticeably as I descended, causing static to crackle in my helmet comms and digital artifacts to skitter across my heads-up display. My suit's internal Geiger counter began clicking intermittently, detecting low-level, exotic radiation.
Not Gamma, not Beta. Someting Else.
Something the suit's library couldn't identify. The tunnel plunged deeper than Scrap's 35-meter drill depth. As the final data burst suggested, the drone must have broken through the crystalline layer into a pre-existing space below. The smooth, drilled walls gave way abruptly to something else entirely. I paused my descent, hanging in the darkness, playing my lamp beam around. The tunnel opened into a vast cavern. Vast wasn't the right word.
Immense. Impossible.
My lamp beam seemed swallowed by the scale of it. And the geometry. It was wrong. Profoundly wrong. Walls curved and flowed in non-Euclidean loops. Angles met in ways that Euclidean space forbade. Perspectives shifted depending on where I looked, creating a subtle sense of vertigo. The material was the same iridescent crystal Scrap had encountered, but here it formed the entire structure, pulsing with a soft, internal luminescence that seemed to shift through the spectrum. It wasn't a cave carved from rock, it felt like a space grown or shaped from solidified light and impossible physics. The low, ambient hum I'd felt through the ship's hull was stronger here, a palpable vibration in the void, resonating through my suit, my bones. And there, suspended in the cavern's improbable center, bathed in the shifting crystalline light, floated the source of the energy. The artifact.
It defeats simple description.
A constantly shifting, impossibly complex structure of interlocking geometric forms, polyhedrons melting into toroids, crystalline lattices intersecting with flowing Mobius strips, facets catching and refracting the internal light in dazzling hypnotic patterns. It pulsed rhythmically, the source of the hum, radiating waves of energy that my suit sensors struggled and failed to categorize. Radiation, temporal distortions, localized spatial warping. Alerts flashed across my HUD like frantic fireflies. It was achingly beautiful, utterly alien, and radiated a sense of power so ancient it felt primordial. My immediate objective resurfaced through the Scrap. I spotted the drone's dark shape against the glowing far wall, maybe 50 meters away across the open space. It looked wedged, damaged, its lights dark. I needed that data core. Releasing more tether, I began a slow, controlled drift across the cavern towards the drone, using microbursts from my suit's maneuvering thrusters.
The artifact pulsed softly in my peripheral vision, a silent, enigmatic titan.
As I neared Scrap, concentrating on my trajectory, my outstretched gauntlet brushed against a low, crystalline outcrop that flowed seamlessly from the cavern floor. Contact. It wasn't an electric shock. It wasn't heat or cold. It was information.
Rau, unfiltered, utterly alien.
A torrent of data, sensations, images slammed into my mind, bypassing my eyes and ears, interfacing directly with my consciousness. Galactic cartography overlaid with shimmering energy conduits I instinctively understood were faster-than-light pathways, but not based on any physics I knew.
Visions of star systems being born and doing like embers.
The cool, detached thought scent of beings unimaginably old, discussing concepts like cosmic architecture, dimensional resonance, the seeding of life, the great silence between galaxies. Schematics for the artifact scrolled past. A key? A map?
A power source? A communication node? All of the Abrufe?
The sheer volume, the alien structure of the thoughts, the immense timescale involved. It was like trying to drink the ocean through a straw. My mind reeled, overwhelmed.
Pine bloomed behind my eyes. Warning. Critical neural interface overload detected.
Biofeedback exceeding safe parameters. Recommend immediate withdrawal and medical attention. The suit's calm, synthesized voice was a jarring counterpoint to the chaos in my head. I recoiled instinctively, pulling my hand away from the crystal, gasping for breath that the suit readily supplied. The contact had lasted barely a second, but it felt like an eternity. My head throbbed, filled with echoes, fragments of alien knowledge I couldn't process or integrate. And the cavern responded. The artifact in the center flared, its rhythmic pulsing quickening, the hum intensifying into an audible, resonant thrum that vibrated through the very space around me. The internal light within the crystalline walls brightened, shifting towards blues and violets. Then, the walls began to move. Not crumbling or collapsing, but extruding. Flowing. Sections slid and reformed with silent, geometric precision. From the glowing, shifting matrix of the walls, shapes emerged. Constructs. Forged from the same iridescent crystal, they unfolded like complex, lethal origami. Angular limbs terminated in sharpened edges or multifaceted lenses that glowed with contained energy. Their forms were varied, some vaguely insectoid, multi-legged walkers, others hovering, winged shapes, one large, vaguely serpentine form coiled near the artifact itself. They weren't alive in any biological sense, but they were aware. Activated. Guardians.
Automated defense systems, dormant for millennia, now awakening.
Their multifaceted sensor clusters swiveled, focusing on the intruder.
On ME. Forget the data core.
Survival protocols slammed into place, overriding everything else. I triggered my tether rewind motor, intending to ascend rapidly back towards the borehole high above. But one of the newly formed, hovering constructs darted forward with astonishing speed. Its forward lens pulsed. A beam of concentrated, violet energy lanced through the cavern, striking the cavern wall inches from my helmet. Crystalline shards exploded outwards with silent violence, peppering my suit.
Proximity alarms screamed. Computer. Intruder alert. Hostile Kontakt.
Seal the Nomad's airlock immediately on my return signal. Prime engines for emergency liftoff.
Maximum power.
My voice was strained, adrenaline flooding my system. The tether retracted, pulling me upwards, but it felt agonizingly slow. Below, more constructs were detaching, moving with unsettling grace in the low gravity. 3 of the insectoid walkers began scaling the cavern walls towards the tunnel entrance, their crystalline limbs finding purchase on surfaces that looked impossibly smooth. Another energy beam lanced past, closer this time, searing the airless void. The heat wash was palpable even through the suit layers. Looking up, the borehole exit seemed miles away. The rewind motor whined, straining. Almost there, 20 meters, 10-5. Snap. A third beam, precisely aimed, struck the tether line just above my harness attachment point. The superheated, high-tensile cable parted instantly, silently. My ascent stopped abruptly. Momentum carried me up slightly, then gravity, or Acheron's strange approximation of it, reasserted its claim. I began to fall, tumbling slowly back down into the vast, glowing cavern, towards the ascending guardians.
Rau Panik, cold and sharp, pierced through the adrenaline Herze.
My mag boots scrabbled uselessly against the frictionless, near-vertical wall. Think. Options dwindling. Below, the lead walker construct was only meters away, its sharpened forelimbs reaching. My sidearm.
The negotiator.
Drew the pulse pistol, the grip familiar and reassuring in my gauntlet. Flipped off the safety. Aimed at the wall just below the construct, slightly ahead of my fall path. Fired twice in quick succession. The kinetic pulses, designed for punching through armored hulls, impacted the crystalline wall with brutal force. They didn't just chip it, they created explosive craters, sending radiating fracture lines spiderwebbing outwards.
Schockwaffes vibratet trug the Strukture.
It didn't stop my fall, but the localized disruption momentarily confused the lead construct. Its ascent faltered, facets flickering as its internal systems likely tried to process the unexpected damage and energy release. That micropause was all I got. As I slid past the fractured section, I jammed the heel of my right mag boot hard against the jagged edge of the crater. The magnetic sole bit into the weakened crystal, arresting my fall with a violent jerk that sent pain shooting up my leg. I hung there, dangling precariously, pistol still hot in my hand. Below, the 3 walkers recovered quickly, resuming their relentless climb. The hovering constructs darted about the cavern, seemingly coordinating. I fired the pistol again, this time directly at the lead walker's central torso. The kinetic slug struck home, shattering outer crystalline layers in a shower of iridescent sparks. The construct shuddered, slowed, but kept coming, seemingly unfazed by the damage. These things were tough.
Plasma Cutter. Last Resort, High Energy Dren.
Thumbed the activation stud. The cutter ignited with a contained, angry hiss, projecting a short, intensely bright blade of plasma. As the lead walker reached my level, its multifaceted head swiveling to fix on me, its sharp forelimb lunging, I swung the plasma cutter in a desperate arc.
The searing energy beam met the crystalline limb.
For a split second, there was resistance, then the plasma carved through, severing the limb cleanly.
Molten Crystal spread outwards.
The construct recoiled, its movements becoming erratic, momentarily disoriented by the damage and the intense heat/energy signature of the cutter. Didn't wait to see if it recovered. Kicked off hard from the wall, propelling myself directly upwards towards the borehole exit. Used the plasma cutter as a makeshift thruster, firing it in short, controlled bursts behind me. It was wildly inefficient, dangerously draining my suit's main power cell, turning the cutter itself incandescently hot, but it provided thrust. Clumsy, desperate, but faster than climbing, faster than the pursuing guardians. Warning icons flashed insistently on my HUD, power cell level critical. Thermal overload imminent, tool unit. Oxygen reserve, 68%.
I shot up the final section of the tunnel like a cork from a bottle, bursting out onto Acheron's cold, silent surface.
Rolled instinctively away from the borehole opening, scrambling to my feet just as the severed arm, then the head and upper torso, of the damaged walker construct emerged, its remaining limbs scrabbling for purchase. More were following.
No time for finesse.
Full sprint across the plateau towards the Nomad, its familiar, angular shape a beacon of salvation against the hostile alien landscape. My mag boots crunched on the regolith. Behind me, the crystalline guardians began to fully emerge onto the surface, 3 walkers and 2 hoverers, their forms glittering unervingly under the distant starlight, silent and implacable. They started moving towards me, faster than seemed possible for their bulk. The Nomad's outer airlock door sensed my suit's approach signature and slid open smoothly. Didn't slow down. Flung myself through the opening, practically diving headfirst onto the airlock floor. Slammed the emergency cycle button on my wrist control. The heavy outer door began to slide shut with agonizing slowness. A violet energy beam splashed against the hull plating just beside the closing door, leaving a momentarily glowing scar on the metal. Then the seal engaged with a solid thud. Safe. Temporarily. The airlock cycled.
Pressurized.
The inner door slid open, and I stumbled onto the bridge, ripping my helmet off with trembling hands. The air, thick with the smell of ozone, stale rations, and recycled sweat, had never smelled sweeter. Collapsed into the pilot's chair, ignoring the protesting ache in my muscles and the flashing low-power alarms from my suit.
Hans check-in, I slammt mein Konsole Controls for emergency lift-off. Engage mein Angines. Maximum thrust. Get US out of here now. The Nomad roared defiance.
Fusion engines ignited, pouring power into the vertical thrusters. The entire ship vibrated violently, shaking off surface dust. Below, through the downward-facing observation port, I saw the crystalline guardians gathered on the plateau, seemingly watching, their forms radiating faint energy. The magnetic clamps disengaged with a screech of tortured metal, protesting the sudden strain. The ship lurched upwards, clawing its way into the black vacuum. As we gained altitude, Acheron itself seemed to protest our departure. The ground around the borehole fractured visibly, fissures racing across the plateau. The energy signature from the core flared, pulsing erratically, and the gravitational distortions intensified exponentially. The Nomad was caught in a turbulent wake, tossed and buffeted like a leaf in a storm.
Holt togeter, damn you.
I wrestled with the controls, fighting the insane gravity waves. Red lights flashed across the console like angry constellations, hull stress warnings on portside section 3. Gravimetric shear exceeding structural limits. Minor power fluctuations in weapons systems, not that they'd have helped. Sensor array partially offline due to EM saturation. Acheron wasn't just letting go, it felt like it was actively trying to pull us back down. Pushed the main drive to 110%, overriding safety limiters. The engine screamed a high-pitched protest, threatening to tear itself apart. Fuel consumption spiked alarmingly. But slowly, meter by agonizing meter, the Nomad clawed its way free from the asteroid's chaotic gravitational embrace, leaving the shuddering, glowing rock and its silent, ancient guardians behind. The immediate danger passed. The ship stabilized, groaning but intact. Mostly. Plotting board activated. FDL drive charger engaged. The familiar high-pitched whine began, building power for the jump to hyperspace. It would take several minutes that felt like hours, alone in the damaged ship, the silence amplifying the frantic pounding of my own heart.
Time to think.
Time to try and make sense of the chaotic flood of information still echoing in my skull. The visions replayed behind my eyes, star-spanning energy grids. Beings of pure thought manipulating spacetime. The artifact, not just a key, but a node in a vast dormant network, a repository of knowledge and power beyond human comprehension. And the warnings, implicit in the data fragments. The network was dormant for a reason. Its power was immense, dangerous, potentially reality-altering. The Guardians weren't just protecting the site, they were protecting the universe from the site being reactivated improperly. What had I stumbled into? This wasn't just an archaeological find, it was like finding the unlocked schematics for the Big Bang, guarded by killer crystals. The responsibility felt crushing. Sell the location?
Alert the Commonwealth?
Tempting. The credits would solve all my problems. But the visions, the sheer scale. No government, no corporation could be trusted with this. Power like that corrupts absolutely, and humanity, frankly, was still struggling with the basics of not blowing itself up over planetary territory disputes. Warlords in the Perseus arm or the fanatics of the Neo-Transcendence cult would trigger an apocalypse for a fraction of this power. No. This knowledge had to remain hidden. At least for now.
Maybe forever.
The FDL charger reached peak resonance.
Ready for jump.
Coordinates? Not Titan. Not Cygnus X1. Not anywhere near established shipping lanes or populated systems. Inputting coordinates for the Silent Nebula, a poorly mapped region in the outer rim known for sensor ghosts and navigational hazards. A place to get lost. Accessing the Nomad's primary log banks. This required careful work. Delete all sensor records pertaining to KB-417b during the approach and departure. Purge the energy signature analysis files. Erase Scrap's final telemetry burst from the buffer. Fabricate new sensor logs. Instrument malfunction due to unexpected gravimetric shear near a rogue planetoid. Designation, random alphanumeric string. Drone RD-7 scrap, lost due to catastrophic system failure during standard asteroid survey. Tether snapped during attempted retrieval under hazardous EVA conditions. Create false energy readings consistent with standard background radiation. Encrypt the fabricated logs with multiple layers of standard Commonwealth encryption, make it look routine. Cross-reference navigation logs, ensure consistency. Took almost 15 minutes, hands still shaking slightly, the echoes in my mind a constant, disturbing background hum.
Let Acheron return to being just another dangerous rock on the star charts.
The burden wasn't gone though. It was now internalized. Locked away in my memory, fragmented but potent. The echoes of Acheron were part of my neural landscape now. I was no longer just Kaelen Vance, Prospector scraping by on the fringes. I was a guardian. An unwilling, unqualified, terrified guardian of a secret that could rewrite the future of the galaxy. Engage FTL drive, I ordered the ship's computer, my voice sounding strangely calm, resigned. The stars outside the viewport stretched, elongated into streaks of blue and white light. The familiar, stomach-churning sensation of entering hyperspace enveloped the Nomad. The battered ship, carrying its damaged hull, its depleted fuel reserves, and its profoundly changed pilot, dissolved into the non-space between dimensions.
Destination, unknown, deeper into the quiet desolation of the outer rim. The void hadn't given ML riches.
It had given me a terrifying purpose. And the silence ahead felt heavier, more profound, than ever before. The journey, I suspected, had only just begun. The ship stabilized, but the silence that followed was frayed, punctuated by the insistent beeping of damage alarms and the low groan of stressed metal. The Nomad, bless her patched-up hull, had held together, but only just. Red lights still littered the main console like angry measles. "Damage report," I croaked, my voice raspy from shouting and the dry, recycled air. My hands felt unsteady on the controls, reaction trembling through my muscles now that the immediate G-forces had subsided. The ship's diagnostic subroutine responded, its synthesized voice unervingly calm. Multiple hull integrity warnings, sections port 3B and starboard aft 7. Micrometeoroid shielding compromised by energy weapon impacts. Outer plating temperatures exceeded tolerance near aft maneuvering thruster assembly S2. Gravimetric compensator efficiency reduced by 38% due to sustained shear stress. Primary sensor array reporting multiple intermittent failures consistent with high-energy EM saturation. FDL drive charging cycle proceeding, estimated time to optimal charge, 7 minutes, 14 seconds. 7 minutes. An eternity when your ship felt like it might shed its skin at any moment. Initiate automated hull breach sealant protocols on affected sections. Reroute primary sensor functions through the auxiliary array. Run Level 3 diagnostics on the grav compensators and thruster S2. I need to know if we can actually make the jump without shaking ourselves apart. Small internal repair drones whirred to life within the ship's maintenance crawlspaces, deploying expanding sealant foam into the identified microfractures. On screen, system schematics rerouted themselves, bypassing damaged nodes. The ship felt wounded. The familiar hum of the engines had a discordant note, a slight tremor running through the deck plates that hadn't been there before. I could feel the strain, the accumulation of years of hard use compounded by this latest, brutal encounter. And then there was the other damage, the echoes reverberating inside my own skull. As the adrenaline ebb left a hollow ache, the alien data fragments surged again. Not a flood this time, but insistent whispers, flashes of imagery behind my closed eyelids. A spiral galaxy seen from an impossible angle, perspective skewed by non-local travel. The intricate crystalline structure of the Guardians, shown not as threats, but as complex mechanisms designed for vigilance over cosmic timescales. A feeling, a sense impression of the artifact's purpose. Less a weapon, more a library, a communication hub, a stabilizer? For what? The data was fragmented, contextless, maddeningly incomplete but profoundly significant.
The sheer age, the power implete, the casual manipulation of forces humanity barely dreamed of, it pressed down on me, a physical weight.
My head throbbed, a dull pulse behind my temples synchronizing with the artifact's remembered hum. Biomonitor readings indicate elevated neural stress, the suit chirped helpfully from where it lay discarded near the airlock. No kidding. 7 minutes to FTL. 7 minutes to decide the fate of potentially galaxy-altering knowledge. The Nomad's comm system chirped, indicating standard network connectivity was re-established now that the intense interference from Acheron had faded with distance. Titan Station. The det. A life free from looking over my shoulder. My fingers hovered over the comm panel.
Open a secure channel.
Priority transmission to Commonwealth Astroarchaeological Directorate. Subject, confirmation of first contact, Class Omega artifact discovery. Coordinates. I actually typed the first few characters of the designation KB417b.
My heart hammered.
Billions of credits.
Instant fame. Vindication.
Maybe even a pardon for certain past indiscretions involving improperly acquired mining rights near Ganymede.
A clean slate. A beach on Tau Ceti4.
But the echo pulsed again.
A feeling of immense caution.
A sense, derived from those alien fragments, of catastrophic consequences if the artifact, the network, was accessed incorrectly prematurely. Like giving nuclear launch codes to toddlers playing in a sandbox. The Guardians hadn't been malicious, they'd been protective.
Against what? Against me?
Against anyone stumbling unprepared into forces beyond their comprehension? My hand recoiled from the console as if burned.
No. I couldn't.
The risk wasn't just personal anymore. It wasn't even species level. The data hinted at bigger things. Balances maintained across vast cosmic structures. The potential disruption. Unthinkable. My debt seemed laughably small in comparison.
My desire for a warm beach felt petty, childish.
Decisions cemented by cold fear and an unfamiliar, unwelcome sense of responsibility.
Allricht, Plan B disappear. The diagnostic on the graph compensators came back.
Efficiency stable at 62%. Structural integrity within marginal parameters for FTL jump initiation. Thruster S2 reporting minor plasma conduit leakage. Recommend operating at no more than 80% capacity post-jump until manual repairs can be effected. Marginal parameters.
Good enough.
We'd limp, but we'd fly. Now the cleanup. Accessing the ship's primary log banks required multiple security overrides, designed to prevent casual tampering, but no match for the captain's codes. The process felt illicit, dirty, even though I was trying to protect something. Methodically, I began weaving the fiction. Sensor logs first. Excised all readings of anomalous energy signatures near KB 417b. Deleted the gravimetric distortion spikes beyond plausible background noise. Inserted fabricated data points consistent with known belt phenomena, pockets of radioactive isotopes, unexpected plasma venting from the asteroid's crust, plausible, given Acheron's volatile reputation.
The deep scan data Z first row ML here?
Corrupted by a simulated sensor malfunction during the approach, blamed it on the debris field interference. Navigation logs next. Shifted the recorded entry vector to Acheron's vicinity by several astronomical units. Made it look like we skirted the system, never entered orbit, never landed. The actual landing coordinates were wiped, overwritten with random noise. Created a new entry detailing a close pass by a different, uninteresting designation, KB 1138C, a barren lump of ice and rock miles away. Scrap's loss needed careful handling. Edited the final telemetry burst, removing all references to crystalline structures, energy fields, or cavities. Replaced it with data simulating catastrophic power failure followed by impact damage consistent with hitting dense rock during uncontrolled descent after a tether malfunction during a routine survey of KB 1138C. Added my own fabricated EVA log entry, hazardous attempt at retrieval, drone 2 damaged, recovery impossible, risk of further equipment loss deemed unacceptable. Sad, but believable. Happens all the time out here. Finally, encrypted the entire fabricated log sequence using standard Commonwealth commercial fleet algorithms. Layered it twice. Added a final checksum validation that looked perfectly normal. Anyone accessing the logs now would see a story of minor equipment trouble, a lost drone, and a prospector cutting his losses near a known hazardous asteroid belt.
Noting more.
It took almost the entire remaining FTL charge time, my fingers flying across the console, the mental echoes a disturbing counterpoint to the technical precision required. FTL drive charge complete, the computer announced. Standing by for coordinate input. Coordinates. Not Titan. Not any civilized hub.
The Silent Nebula. Sector Gamma 9, Outer Rim Territories.
Known for sensor ghosts, magnetic anomalies that played hell with navigation, and a distinct lack of anything worth mining or colonizing. Patrols avoided it. Pirates found better pickings elsewhere. It was vast, quiet, and largely ignored. Perfect. I keyed in the coordinates, a string of numbers leading deep into the nebula's turbulent, obscuring clouds. The Nomad's navigation computer plotted the jump trajectory, a long, looping arc across hyperspace. Taking a deep breath, the first relatively calm one since landing on Acheron, I gripped the FTL jump controls. The weight on my shoulders hadn't lessened. If anything, it felt heavier now, solidified by my actions. I wasn't just running from debt anymore. I was running with something.
A secret too immense to comprehend, let alone share.
Engage, I commanded, my voice quiet but firm.
The familiar lurch, the visual distortion as space-time twisted.
The stars outside smeared into streaks of impossible light, converging towards a point that wasn't there. The Nomad, battered but resolute, plunged into the swirling, chaotic currents of hyperspace. The bridge lights flickered once, twice, as the ship endured the transition, the sounds of protesting metal momentarily drowned out by the roar of the drive. Then, relative quiet. The steady thrum of the FTL drive navigating the non-space between realities.
Destination, the silent nebula.
Anonymity. But not peace. The echoes of Acheron traveled with me, embedded in my mind, silent companions in the long, dark journey ahead.
I was Kaelen Vance, Prospector no more.
Now, I was the keeper of Acheron's dangerous silence, the reluctant guardian of its echoes, heading deeper into the vast, indifferent void forever changed. The journey had just begun, and the price of failure was now terrifyingly, cosmically high.